it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do my August wrap-up. Now for the month of August, I actually read way more than I thought I did. It was quite the surprise. As I was gathering all the books for this video, I realized I basically completed 7 books and got a huge chunk of the way through an 8th one. And honestly, I can't remember since the last time I read this much in 1 month, and especially considering everything that's happened in August, I don't know. I'm shocked. So anyway, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first chunk of books I'm going to be talking about are the books I read during the Booktubeathon this year, which happened in very early August. All the books I ended up reading / completing for that readathon was in the month of August. The first book I'm going to talk about is a book that's kind of a technicality for finishing this month, but I did finish it in the month of August, and that is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I read the last 100 pages or so during the Booktubeathon, and this is a series I have not been able to put down since I picked it up or started it back in June. This is an epic fantasy story that follows so many different perspectives and so many amazing characters, and honestly it has enveloped me since page 1. I thought it was going to be hard to read, it was going to be long, it was going to be, I don't know, laborious to read this in giant series, but it has been the opposite. It's been a breeze. I have been begging for more pages. Once I finish these books, all I want is more, and the thought of having to wait so long for the 4th one makes me sad, but I trust in Brandon Sanderson it's gonna come out. That being said, the sequel was even better than the first one. I loved every second of it. 5 out of 5 stars. I just love Brandon Sanderson. I love his books. I just love everything, everything. The next book I completed was also during the Booktubeathon, as I mentioned, and that is The Dreadful Tale of Prospero by Alexander Bracken. I honestly wish I waited a few more months to read this book during the Halloween season, because this just has the most perfect fall ambiance. That being said, this is a fun, dark, middle grade story following our main character, Prospero, who has been possessed by a family demon who has basically spent his entire immortal life trying to enact revenge on Prospero's long historical family. And this follows our main character, Prospero, who's part of a very illustrious New England family that has been in Massachusetts since the colonial times. And Prospero's great ancestor made the deal with a demon, and ever since then this demon has been trying to destroy this family. At the beginning of the story, Prospero is possessed by this said demon, and he spends the entire book trying to save his family, save himself. It involves a lot of really fun like magic and mystery, and there's a lot of like witchness to it. Also, this takes place in a large part in a haunted house during Halloween. It just has like a lot of really great classic Halloween vibes combined with a lot of humor and family drama. I thought it was really entertaining from page 1. It didn't blow my mind by any means, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm excited for the rest of the books in this series because I only think it's going to get better. I also thought the relationship between Prospero and the demon was funny, to be honest. That being said, I really did enjoy this book, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book is a book I haven't actually completed, and I'm not quite sure I will complete, but I wanted to mention it as a DNF, and that is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. This was a reread for me. I have already read the entirety of this book about 4 years ago, and I wanted to reread this series, so I started it this month and I read half of it. And to be honest, it just wasn't really capturing my attention as much as I had remembered it doing 4 years ago. This is a 19th century set paranormal story set mostly in a English boarding school, and it follows a young girl kind of discovering her powers, stumbling upon romance, all of those things. This book was alright, but again, it just did not capture my attention like it did the first time I read it. This isn't a series I'm gonna 100% give up on. I might give it another try, maybe in 4 to 5 months, to see perhaps just something with my reading mood, as I'm quite the mood reader. That being said though, it definitely wasn't one that completely captured my attention from page 1. I wasn't blowing through the pages like I normally do with Libba Bray books, so I was a little surprised that I didn't love it as much as I did. It was just kind of a standard YA paranormal novel, and for that reason I kind of stopped about halfway through this month, but I did want to mention it as I did read over 50% of the book. The next book I completed is Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella novel that takes place between Words of Radiance and Ozbringer, and it follows one of my absolute favorite side characters of this series called Lift, and she is the most quirky, hilarious, say it like it is radiant you'll come across in this entire series, and she honestly steals the spotlight every single scene she is in. Her interactions with anyone is just undeniably hilarious. That being said, I thought this was a fun little novella. It was nice to get a little more context about Lift's character because I do think it's important, especially going into Ozbringer, which I'll be talking about later. So it was definitely nice to get more Lift in my life, so this was great. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I wish it was longer. The first half of the book is a chapter that already exists within Words of Radiance, so I was kind of hoping for 100% new material. That being said, the new material I did read was great, so I liked it. The next book I'm going to talk about is Serafina by Rachel Hartman. This is the Perustopia book club pick for the month of August. And Sasha and I were so excited to pick this up. Ultimately, I will say I am of two minds of this book. I wanted to love this book so much, but I'm kind of about it, which I feel like I've encountered a few times this month, which is a little disappointing. I read a few books this month that I absolutely love, but I also encountered some books like Serafina where I was just kind of okay feeling about it. That being said, this is a dragon-centered fantasy story following our main character Serafina, who's half human, half dragon. This is a world where humans and dragons have a very tumultuous relationship. They do have a peace treaty that has kept these two groups of individuals from fighting and killing each other like they had done centuries upon centuries before. This novel takes place on the eve of that treaty expiring, and a lot of the drama and a lot of the political strife that is centering the new treaty that hopefully will be signed. I, again, have mixed feelings about this book. I thought the setting and the politics of this story were very interesting. I haven't read a lot of dragon fantasy, so I thought the interaction and the nuances of the dragons were really cool to read. Every time I read about dragon culture, I was very entertained and very interested to learn more. Serafina as a main character, I really enjoyed. I liked her perspectives. I like how she kind of brought herself around in the world. I also thought the magic that was kind of present in the story was interesting, but ultimately I also found this book very slow to read. It took me so long to finish this, and I think partially it's because I could never 100% get into the story, but also, I don't know, it's just something about the story just didn't 100% grip me. And while I did love Serafina, I couldn't say the same for a lot of the other characters that were present in the story. So again, you can kind of see how I'm very torn. There are elements of this book and the writing that I enjoy, and I found the narrative style and quality to be really enjoyable, but at the same time, I found it very difficult to get through this entire book, and I wasn't totally drawn in by the major plot points. So again, I feel like I'm definitely gonna give the sequel of this book a try because I did like a lot of elements of this book, but it did not blow me away, is basically what I'm trying to say. That being said, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm gonna be talking about is The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. This is another book that I am of two minds of. I have a bit of mixed feelings about this story as well. Like I mentioned, I've read a few books like that this month. This is a YA fantasy novel set in a kingdom where people passion in things. Essentially, young women and young men can go to a particular type of boarding school where they can decide to specialize in one of 5 passions: art, music, knowledge, dramatics, which is theater, and then wit, which is like wordplay, kind of politics. And our main character, Brianna, desires to really only find and discover and be chosen in a passion. Essentially, when you basically decide to pursue a passion, you study, and then hope to get selected by a patron to then pursue that passion for the rest of your life. We encounter our main character on the eve of when she's supposedly about to get chosen by a patron. However, the unfortunate thing happens is that she's not chosen in her desired passion. From there, she discovers elements to her hidden heritage and gets involved in a political plot between the kingdom she was raised in and a neighboring kingdom that has had a lot of tumultuous history, being that the matriarchy was taken over by a king and magic has been squashed and certain magical items have been missing since the king has taken over. And this story transforms from one of kind of like a boarding school setting to one very much centered around politics, war, and kind of like mystery and spy infiltration. Again, this is a book that I talked quite heavily in my most recent reading vlog, but it's one that I absolutely flew through. I found the writing style to be very, very entertaining and the story itself to be very easy to digest and like a lot of fun to read. That being said, the plot was rather predictable, meaning that I kind of guessed all the plot twists, and I also found a lot of the relationship building to be a little too quick for my taste, mostly in the familial setting. I found like the father-daughter and like the sister-brother kind of relationships kind of seemingly appeared very fast, which kind of took me out of the story. But I also really enjoyed the romantic plot lines and a lot of the political plot lines, but I also wish those had a little more time to be developed as well. So as you can see, like, I'm also of two minds. Like, the elements were well written. I found the author to have made this really creative world. I enjoyed the boarding school setting, especially. I thought it was really cool to follow Brianna as she was in her classes. But then when it kind of shifted to the more political side of it, I thought those elements were interesting, but I wanted there to be more time given to develop them to like the richness that they deserve. So yes, I do recommend this book because the writing was really entertaining. Just the plot, I just wanted a little bit more from. That being said, I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was good, not great, but it was also entertaining. So there you go. The next book I'm going to talk about, I feel like saved me. As you could tell from the last 3 books I talked about, I liked but didn't love them. So when I picked up Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson, I was holding on. I was like, I just want to love you. I just want to rave about you on my channel. And guys, guess what? I loved this book so much. This is a YA fantasy novel set in the same world as The Remnant Chronicles, which is a fantasy world and series that Mary E. Pearson released a few years ago, and it's a book series that I personally really love. This is set, I want to say 7 or 8 years in the future. It follows 2 new main characters. One of our main characters is a reformed thief turned to the Queen's like personal guard, and the Queen sends her on missions basically to help protect the kingdom. And we also follow the new heir to a crime or city family, essentially kind of like a mob type of family in the medieval ages. So it has this really interesting like fantasy mob family thing going on. These 2 characters' worlds collide as Kazi, the Queen's Guard, goes to investigate Jace and his family and their holdings. It begins as like a hate to love romance situation, which by the way was completely captivating, so smoldering, and I was obsessed with every second of it. But both of these people have set strong ties to who they're loyal to, that ultimately they're kind of like torn apart and forced to choose like loyalties or love. And the political world of this whole novel really begins to escalate throughout the story so perfectly. Just a story that will honestly keep you on the edge of your seat. I also found kind of this mob family setting to be very interesting and not one that I've really encountered often in a fantasy kind of novel. That being said, I flew through all 500 pages of this book so fast. I am absolutely obsessed with both characters, and I just really love how Mary E. Pearson was able to create realistic stakes between the 2 of them and true like angsty separation that makes sense. Like, they want to be with each other but they can't, and there's so many logical reasons as to why, but you just want them to be able to fix it. I don't know, it will give you a lot of feelings. This is the first book to a series, I'm assuming, and I cannot wait for the next one because this ended on quite the cliffhanger. Again, I absolutely loved this book. I flew through it. It was incredibly entertaining, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the very last book I'm going to talk about is the book I have not quite finished, and that is Ozbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is a book I've been reading throughout the entire month of August, and I'm on page 800 of 1300, so I've made pretty good progress in this novel, but it's large and so heavy. Again, this is the 3rd book to the Stormlight Archives. Absolutely loving it. I've already kind of referenced how amazing this book series is in this video already, so just know that I love it. It's incredible. The 3rd book, even better than the 2nd one. I don't know how Brandon Sanderson keeps doing this, but I just can't put it down. I read it every day as I'm traveling to work, and it's just amazing. And then when you figure out who the character is on the front, you just die, and like the artwork, it's just impeccable. So I'll definitely be finishing this in September, and I'll give my star rating then, but I wanted to quickly shout out that I also read 800 pages of Oathbringer. Hey guys, so those are all of the books I completed in August. Let me know down below some books you've read recently, as I would love to know. Anyway, I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!